Tonight, the virtual reality giving doctors a new view. Canadian technology that allows for optimal operations. The practice before the procedure.
You're looking right at the tumor now.
And the benefits for patients.
Very cool with the headset, and you could move it around.
We regretfully could not support it.
The U.S. vetoes a call for a ceasefire in Gaza at the United Nations.
We want to axe attacks.
Also, an all-nighter in the House of Commons. A marathon voting session over the carbon tax. Plus, going to bat for baseball's biggest star. But will he come to Canada? And the great Donair debate.
It belongs nowhere on a Donair.
It's just a perfect balance.
From tried and true toppings to competing claims over what part of the country loves them most.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina. Reporting tonight, Mirella Fernandez.
Good evening. It is being called a game changer. New technology that allows doctors to do a walkthrough inside a patient's body to prepare for surgery. A young Ontario cancer patient among the first in the country to benefit from the Canadian-designed virtual reality system. CTV's medical correspondent Avis Favreau reports.
When a rare bone cancer began eating away at Emeric LeBlanc's left hip, doctors at the Ottawa hospital enlisted a brand new tool.
Let's actually just walk into the pelvis.
This is a Canadian-designed virtual reality medical system that puts the physicians inside the 3D recreation of Emeric's abdomen.
You're looking right at the tumor now.
There it is, colored in purple and embedded in Emeric's hip bone. It's pre-planning for surgery in new detail to minimize how much bone is amputated and sparing tissues around it.
Every time we go into the headset, we are literally inside the patient looking directly at the tumor.
Emeric was the very first patient to put on goggles to see what doctors practiced on.
Very cool with the headset, and you could move it around, check it from every angle.
Right at the superior crest.
Medical teams worldwide use CT scans and MRIs to prepare for surgery, but the images are flat. So a team at the hospital found a way to fuse all the images and data already generated for patients using this system now called Elucis. Medical teams from anywhere in the world can consult. Studies suggest this may help surgeons better prepare and lead to fewer complications.
We've looked at it critically from a data point of view, around 13 or 14 patients. I think that's where we are right now, and we have 3 or 4 scheduled in the docket to do in the next few months.
The system is being used on lungs, hearts, and for transplants.
We have about 18 hospitals in the States that are using it on a daily basis for clinical treatment planning.
Emeric, meanwhile, recovered from his hip surgery.
I still do whatever I want, and I don't let that stop me.
Having helped doctors work on a new way of seeing patients from the inside out. Avis Favreau, CTV News, Toronto.
A range of respiratory illnesses have strained hospitals and doctors in several provinces, with COVID clearly making a comeback. Not many people are testing, but wastewater data in Ontario shows the virus is hitting a yearly high. And for millions of Canadians who are COVID-free, symptoms have stayed. Statistics Canada says 1 in every 9 adults has had long COVID as of June this year. That's some 3.5 million Canadians, and roughly half of them are still struggling with their symptoms. It's been a long night for MPs in the House of Commons. They've been stuck in a marathon voting session, a filibuster of sorts, led by the opposition Conservatives. They're trying to get the Liberal government to drop its controversial carbon tax. CTV's Annie Berger-Oliver has the latest from Ottawa.
Ms. Thompson.
The Conservative protest over the carbon tax saw the parliamentary calendar skip an entire day.
We want to axe the tax, so we are requesting recorded division.
No question period, no committees.
Mr. Nugby.
Just voting for more than 24 hours.
So if Justin Trudeau wants to get anything else passed with any kind of cooperation from other parties, in our case, he's going to have to axe the tax to provide that relief for Canadians.
Can't hear.
The parliamentary roadblock started Thursday night.
The motion is to remove the carbon tax.
No, there's no unanimous consent.
In total, more than 100 spending items that normally get voted on in bulk, from military support for Ukraine to funding for Canada's anti-racism strategy, were recorded.
What the Conservatives are doing right now is so silly and absolutely ridiculous. This is not leadership.
But the Liberals did recently offer a carbon tax carve-out, providing a 3-year pause for users of home heating oil. The Prime Minister today, though, said the carbon tax is here to stay.
Have any intention on acting the carbon tax like the Conservatives want? Are you going to back down?
No, we're not acting the tax.
This parliamentary game has been done many times before, but this one brings light to a topic that isn't going away.
I think it's become a proxy for just affordability generally. I mean, it's the top issue when we ask Canadians what do they care most about.
And for the Conservative leader, who voted virtually for the first several hours, experts say it's a chance for videos like this that play well to his audience.
It's just a way for them to repackage what's going on and show it to their supporters and say, look, we are really trying to work on this for you.
The Conservatives say they will continue to put pressure on the government and are threatening to put forward amendments and votes at committee to further derail the parliamentary agenda. The House of Commons is set to rise for the holiday break, Morella, next Friday.
Annie Berger, Oliver, thanks for that. So no break in the war between Israel and Hamas today. 13 of the 15 members of the UN Security Council voted for a ceasefire, but the U.S., which has veto power, blocked the resolution. CTV's Kevin Gallagher on that.
The war in Gaza has displaced an estimated 1.9 million people, according to the United Nations, increasing the risk of famine and disease inside cramped refugee camps.
There is a high risk of the total collapse of the humanitarian support system in Gaza, which would have devastating consequences.
The UN Secretary General used a rare diplomatic tool to force the powerful Security Council to vote on a ceasefire motion. The United States used its veto to block it, but says it raised concerns with Israel.
Israel has an obligation to do everything possible to put a premium on protecting civilians and maximizing humanitarian assistance.
This as the Israeli Defense Force faces outrage over this video showing Palestinian men detained and stripped down to their underwear in Gaza. The Israeli government justifies this as the arrest of Hamas terror suspects.
We're talking about military-aged men who were discovered in areas that civilians were supposed to have evacuated weeks ago. We've been calling for an evacuation of those Hamas strongholds.
The Committee to Protect Journalists says Palestinian correspondent Dia Al-Khalut is one of the men detained and should be released. Rockets launched from Gaza triggered air sirens in Tel Aviv. At least one made it through the Iron Dome, hitting a parked car, though no injuries reported. As an Israeli war cabinet minister laid his son to rest, who died fighting Hamas with the IDF. We will press the offensive, he says, to bolster the country you loved.
With calls for a ceasefire shot down for now, the families of hostages are pleading for action to release the estimated 137 still held by Hamas. Morella?
All right, Kevin, thanks for the update. A Palestinian Canadian is suing the federal government to get his 4 grandchildren out of Gaza. Mohammed Nafal is alleging global affairs and immigration officials created a discriminatory policy and abused their power in denying his family help in evacuating from a war zone. CTV's Judy Trin reports.
Mohammed and Intizar Nofal tried constantly to reach their son's family in southern Gaza. Until someone picks up, they fear the worst.
I am broken with my heart inside.
When Israel began its airstrikes, the Nofals had faith Canada would help evacuate their most vulnerable loved ones.
We have been going through a nightmare for the last 2 months, trying actually at least we can save the grandchildren.
Mohammed and Intizar have 4 grandchildren under the age of 17. Hope came on October 19th in an email from Global Affairs' SOS account stating that non-Canadian grandchildren or children of Canadian citizens or permanent residents were eligible for evacuation. 3 days later, the offer was rescinded because Global Affairs made an error. Then another flip-flop on November 4th. Evacuation was possible, but the Nofals had to obtain proof of guardianship. They scrambled and got it. Despite clearing each bureaucratic hurdle, the no-falls were told at the end of November that their grandchildren did not qualify for evacuation. They're now taking legal action, suing the government in federal court and alleging discrimination. The no-falls accuse the government of helping evacuate the foreign children of Canadians from Israel, but not from Gaza.
I am happy they have been treating, the Canadian-Israeli in a proper way, but the Canadian-Palestinian has been dehumanized and treated as a second-class Canadian.
The immigration minister says he's working to extend more visas to Palestinians with connections to Canada. Mark Miller wasn't aware of the no-falls allegations, but expressed concern.
It doesn't make sense to deny children. We have a limited window to advocate for a limited group of people in a different context. We're talking about a war zone.
But even if the no-falls legal action succeeds, Canada does not get the final say on who gets to leave Gaza through the Rafah border crossing. Judy Trin, CTV News, Ottawa.
More than 420,000 public sector workers went on strike today in Quebec. Among them, educators, leading to all public schools being closed. But it's also lab technicians and social service workers on the picket line. And as CTV's Quebec bureau chief, Geneviève Beauchemin, tells us tonight, they could be joined by nurses next week.
Picket lines went up across Quebec again. Teachers, support workers, lab technicians in the province have now added up more strike days this year than in the previous half a century. The walkouts shut down all public schools. Essential services in sectors like healthcare continue, but there are slowdowns. It's the Common Front that took to the streets today, a coalition of unions representing 420,000 workers that have teamed up to get a new deal.
I hope that our premier will understand and will listen.
The Common Front planned this as a 7-day strike, but that could change.
It may come to a general strike. It's not what we want.
Some French school teachers have walked out indefinitely, and they're seemingly settling in for a long one, leaving parents scrambling.
Sure, it's tough for the parents, and sure, they'd like us to go back to work. They also would like us to fight for a system that's better for their kids.
Workers rejected Quebec's latest offer, and the government posted just how much that would have put in their pockets. More than $147,000 for nurses at top of scale, $104,000 for teachers. Striking workers say that's not enough, and they also want better working conditions. Through this fall's strikes, Premier François Legault's once sky-high approval has plummeted. An Angus Reid survey this week found he is the least popular premier in Canada. Among the reasons, hockey. The government earmarked $7 million to bring the LA Kings to Quebec City for preseason games, just as it was telling workers times were tough. A lightning rod for strikers and for parents.
Government should take responsibility to treat our teachers the way they would treat an athlete.
Union leaders say if there's no deal by the end of next week, they'll crank up pressure tactics even further. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
Some Alberta workers want some guarantees about a proposed pension plan. Many oppose the idea of exiting the Canada pension plan.
About 50% of Albertans say no. About 25% have said we're in favor of it.
The province will stop gathering public feedback as it waits for clarity from Ottawa on how much of the CPP it's entitled to. Alberta had estimated it was entitled to half of the fund, but other economists say it's more like 15%. There was no public input, just MLAs choosing who will lead the Northwest Territories.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Premier of the Northwest Territories.
That is R.J. Simpson from Hay River being sworn in as the 14th Premier. The territory does not have political parties. That's why the leader is chosen from sitting independent MLAs. Coming up, new legal problems for Hunter Biden.
Mr. President, your reaction!
A look at the charges against the U.S. president's son. Plus,
love means never having to say you're sorry.
Remembering actor Ryan O'Neal. Hunter Biden faces new criminal charges tonight. The U.S. president's son has been slapped with federal charges accused of cheating on his taxes. CTV's Washington bureau chief Joy Malbon reports.
Any comment on the new charges against your son, Mr. President?
President Joe Biden's campaign for re-election just got much harder. His son Hunter now facing 9 new criminal charges, accused of failing to pay $1.4 million in taxes between 2016 and 2019, while earning millions from foreign companies. The indictment contains lurid details alleging Hunter spent lavishly on drugs, escorts, and girlfriends, luxury hotels, exotic cars, tens of thousands spent on strip clubs, porn, and women he was seeing. In short, said the prosecutor, spending money on everything but his taxes. The president's son has battled drug addiction, telling pop star Moby on his podcast before the indictment he's a victim of right-wing harassment, hoping he'll relapse and hurt his dad.
So it's not about me. In their most base way, what they're trying to do is they're trying to kill me, knowing that it will be a pain greater than my father could be able to handle. And so therefore, destroying a presidency in that way.
Hunter paid back his taxes with penalties. A plea deal 6 months ago would have meant no jail time, but it fell apart. His lawyer says these charges are politically motivated.
If his name wasn't Hunter Biden, this would not have happened.
Hunter's legal troubles, his addiction are personal, painful, and a political headache for Joe Biden campaigning for re-election.
My son's done nothing wrong. I trust him. I have faith in him.
Lawyers say Hunter's tax case likely won't head to trial until after the presidential election next November. He faces 17 years in prison if convicted. Morella?
Joel Malvin, appreciate that. Well, the charges against 2 Ontario men are linked to terrorism. Both are accused of being part of an international neo-Nazi terrorism group called Attawaffen Division. They were set to appear in court on Monday. Straight ahead, the waiting game to seal the deal. The Jays go all in on baseball's most coveted player. He's one of the biggest stars in baseball, a franchise player that could soon be a Toronto Blue Jay. The rumor mill hit overdrive today as fans and insiders tried to predict the future of Shohei Ohtani. Here's CTV's Heather Wright.
Rogers Center. And Shohei with a drive to right. He has welcomed himself to Canada.
He's the reigning American League MVP, an elite two-way player, and a free agent. And today, Shohei Ohtani watch hit a fever pitch.
It's super exciting. I can't wait. I'm waiting for the news.
An entire city and country also waiting for any news on where Ohtani might sign, with reports that Toronto is a top contender.
2 weeks ago, it would have been impossible. Last week, it would have been improbable. And today, everyone is saying 50-50. There's a chance.
Ohtani is regarded as one of the best baseball players in the world, a hitter and a pitcher. He led the American League in home runs last season, and in May passed Babe Ruth on the all-time strikeout list.
He is a dynamic offensive player, and once he's recovered from elbow surgery, a very, very good pitcher as well.
The Blue Jays have had successful regular seasons over the last few years, but they have not won a postseason game since 2016. A player like Ohtani would provide an immediate impact for a team looking to make a deep postseason run.
He takes you from a maybe to a probably in terms of being a legit contender.
Rumors that an Ohtani decision is imminent sent Blue Jays fans into a frenzy today, many tracking a private plane as it flew from Southern California to Toronto, looking for any clue that Ohtani was headed north.
Oh, it would be great if they got him, for sure.
Great for baseball and great for business, with Ohtani bringing new sponsorship and marketing opportunities, not to mention a massive following in his native Japan. Wherever he signs, it's estimated the 29-year-old will command something in the neighborhood of $500 to $600 million.
Boy, this guy's a one-man show.
For now, though, Jays fans wait, hoping for showtime in Toronto. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
You would have to be of a certain age to remember Ryan O'Neal. He was one of the most popular actors of the 1970s. He's passed away.
Love means never having to say you're sorry.
O'Neal rocketed to Hollywood's A-list with his Oscar-nominated performance in the blockbuster Love Story. 3 years later, he co-starred with his daughter, Tatum, in the hit period drama Paper Moon. O'Neill's later career was overshadowed by that on-again, off-again relationship with actress Farrah Fawcett. O'Neill had been battling prostate cancer and leukemia. He was 82. He was universally regarded as one of Ireland's finest modern poets, and today thousands of mourners line the streets of Dublin to honour the life and legend of Shane MacGowan. The coffin of the Pogues singer and frontman made its way through the Irish capital before a funeral service in MacGowan's ancestral home county of Tipperary. The Irish president attended. So did actor Johnny Depp and singer Nick Cave. MacGowan died November 30th. He was 65. After the break, a taste of the Maritimes. The cook-off to answer a question about a much-loved meal. It's a street food with a Greek twist that some Canadian cities claim as their own. And today on National Donair Day, the battle rages strong. Which part of the country does Donairs the best? CTV Sarah Plowman now on the divisive and delicious Donair debate.
There's no right way. You just eat it.
It takes a stomach and a strategy.
Basically, you roll it up and you take bites, you pick it out.
Meet the cousin of the Euro and kebab, the Donair.
1973, a Greek immigrant came to Halifax and invented it here.
Shaved, spiced ground beef, topped with sweet sauce, tomatoes, and onions. But here, lettuce is not welcome.
It belongs nowhere on a Donair.
No room for that vegetable.
Go on other wraps. You can have it on a club sandwich, gyro shawarma, sure, but we don't carry lettuce in store.
Halifax declared the Donair its official food, but it's been adopted across the Maritimes.
This is the Donair meat and that sauce. It's just a perfect balance.
A snack not just championed on the East Coast.
No, I thought it was more like a maritime thing.
Edmontonians are proud to point out they may have more Donair shops. And there,
call it like a capital of Donair in Canada.
And in Edmonton, they serve lettuce.
It added a nice crunch, a nice texture, and it's something that, to me is an imperative part of a Donair.
The controversy was cracked open when Alberta auctioned off a Donair costume. This shop owner bought it for $16,000, in part to protect the lettuce.
A lot of people from the Maritimes who have migrated to Alberta to work or whatnot, and who have since converted under my watch to lettuce lovers on their Donair.
4 hours from Halifax in Fredericton, a twist.
We do lettuce and people love the lettuce. There's not very many people that don't get the lettuce. So.
A debate that likely won't end on National Donair Day. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Fredericton.
That's a wrap on the day. I'm Morella Fernandez. For all of us here at CTV National News, thanks for your time. Good night. I'll see you again tomorrow.